Tartarus 9 was a world that no one wanted to set foot on. It was known across the galaxy as a Class 0 death world, the deadliest kind of planet imaginable. The very air was thin and harsh, barely enough to breathe. The gravity was heavy, pushing down on everything twice as hard as Earth's, making every movement a struggle. The sky was a dark, angry swirl of clouds, constantly ripped apart by fierce storms that cut through the land like giant knives. The two suns that hung above burned fiercely, heating the rocky surface to unbearable levels during the day, while freezing temperatures struck at night. The planet's landscapes were full of dangers. Sharp volcanic rocks covered the ground. Rivers of acid flowed through jagged canyons, and strange, terrifying creatures roamed the wilds. These creatures were unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Some had scales made of glass that reflected the sun's harsh light and shattered at the slightest touch, while others had long, venomous tails that could kill with one strike. Predators moved silently and quickly, always hunting. No other species had ever managed to survive here for long. The Galactic Assembly, a council that governed many worlds, had labeled Tartarus 9 a dead zone, a place to avoid at all costs. Any colony or expedition sent to the planet had disappeared within days, lost to the deadly environment or the native monsters. Then came humanity. The ship UNSC Valiant Dawn was supposed to be on a peaceful mission to settle a nearby, safer planet. But fate had other plans. While traveling through hyperspace, a sudden malfunction sent the ship spiraling out of control. It crash-landed hard on Tartarus 9, ripping through the atmosphere and smashing into the planet's rocky surface. The impact destroyed much of the ship and killed many of the people aboard. Out of the original 80,000 passengers and crew, only about 12,000 survived the crash and the harsh first week. The survivors were a mix of soldiers, scientists, engineers, and ordinary families who never expected to find themselves stranded on a world so cruel. Despite the dangers all around them, the storms, the gravity, the creatures, they refused to give up. They fought to stay alive. The survivors gathered in a place they would call New Bastion, a small area shielded from the worst of the storms. It was a rough, dangerous settlement, made from the remains of their crashed ship and whatever materials they could scavenge. They built shelters underground, digging into the planet's rocky crust to find safety from the deadly weather and the vicious wildlife. Every day was a battle. The acid rain threatened their equipment, the predators prowled just outside their walls, and food was scarce. They fought starvation, sickness, and despair. Yet, despite all this, their determination grew stronger. They sent out scouting teams to find resources, mapped safe paths, and invented new tools to survive. Their weapons were worn and limited, but they used every bit of human ingenuity to improve them. They learned to trap the native creatures, using their biology against them. Slowly, the survivors began to understand Tartarus 9's dangerous patterns, the timing of storms, the movement of predators, the locations of safe water. Each day their colony grew stronger and more organized. Leaders emerged. Among them was Commander Asha Kincaid, a former Special Forces officer. She was tough, sharp, and driven by a deep sense of duty to protect the people who depended on her. Asha's experience in combat and survival made her the natural choice to lead the colony through this nightmare. At night, the people of New Bastion would gather in small groups, sharing stories of Earth, their homes, and the lives they had lost. They mourned the dead but refused to be broken by grief. They dreamed of sending a signal to Earth, telling them they were still alive, still fighting. But communications were crippled by the planet's magnetic storms. The universe seemed to have forgotten them. On Tartarus 9, death was common but hope was stubborn. Humanity had never faced a challenge like this before. Other species fled from death worlds, but humans clung to life with fierce pride. They believed in their ability to survive and adapt, no matter the cost. And this belief was what kept them going when everything else told them to give up. Tartarus 9 was a place of fire and shadow of endless danger. It was a world designed to kill. But for the humans stranded there, it was no longer just a death world. It was becoming home. They were determined not just to survive, but to conquer. They would tame this hostile land and make it theirs no matter what it took. The struggle on Tartarus 9 was far from over. Inside the walls of New Bastion, beneath layers of rock and ash, the survivors gathered for their most urgent meeting yet. The war room was a hollowed-out cavern, cold and dark, except for the blue light of a large holographic map that hovered in the center. It showed the planet's surface marked with dozens of small red dots, outposts and supply depots that humans had built in their effort to take hold of this hostile world. But many of those dots blinked out every week, disappearing under mysterious and violent attacks. The air was thick with tension as Commander Asha Kincaid stood at the head of the room. Her eyes scanned the map, tracing the routes of the creatures and storms that had killed so many. Her face was hard, marked with the lines of fatigue and loss. Her voice cut through the silence, steady and firm. "We've lost 67 outposts this month alone," she said, her tone low but fierce. "The enemies adapt faster than we can. Our supply lines are under constant fire. If we don't change tactics, we'll be wiped out." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Dara Holt, a sharp-minded strategist, nodded grimly. "Evacuation?" she suggested quietly, knowing how desperate the idea was. But Asha shook her head. "No, we can't leave. Not now. Earth believes we're gone. If we try to pull back, help won't come. We have to fight. Fight for every inch of this world." The room was filled with murmurs, some worried, some angry. The challenge they faced was enormous. Tartarus 9 was no ordinary death world. It wasn't just the brutal environment or the deadly creatures that stalked the night. Something else had awakened deep beneath the surface. An ancient alien intelligence long forgotten had stirred. Known only as the Warden, this being was more than a machine. It was a cold, calculating force designed to protect the planet and eliminate all intruders. Its drones emerged from underground tunnels and fissures, swift and silent as shadows. They tore through human defenses, capturing people, destroying equipment, and sabotaging supply drops. Orbital platforms that once sent vital shipments to New Bastion were hacked and turned against the colonists, raining laser fire on their own people. Every day was a fight for survival, and every fight brought more losses. But Asha was not ready to give up. She understood that the Warden was a different kind of enemy, one that could learn, adapt, and strike with precision. It was a ruthless guardian that saw humans as a threat, and it intended to exterminate them all. But humanity had a weapon the Warden could never understand: willpower. "We have to be smarter," Asha told her council. "We need to use the planet against it. We will set traps, use the volcanoes and geysers as weapons. We'll turn their own machines against them." The colonists worked day and night to develop new weapons and defenses. Scientists and engineers scavenged parts from the wreckage and combined human technology with the alien fragments they found. They built EMP spears to disable drones, camouflaged shelters to hide from sensors, and reprogrammed captured enemy machines to fight for them. In the midst of this chaos, a small group of elite soldiers called the Black Talon took on the deadliest missions. They were led by Asha herself, tough and relentless. Among them was Jace Moreno, a quiet but fierce soldier who had survived a terrible injury that replaced much of his body with strange biometal grown from Tartarus's own toxic soil. Jace was a symbol of human resilience. Half man, half machine, all determination. These soldiers conducted sabotage runs into enemy territory, sneaking into tunnels and hidden factories to plant virus bombs that would disrupt the Warden's control systems. Each mission was a gamble, with many never returning. The losses were heavy, but their efforts slowed the enemy's advance. The people of New Bastion watched and waited, clinging to hope. Asha's leadership inspired them to believe they could win this war against impossible odds. She reminded them that humanity's strength was not just in weapons or machines, but in their ability to adapt, to think, and to refuse to back down. The War Council's plan was dangerous, but it was all they had. They would fight in the shadows, using the planet itself as a weapon. until they found a way to strike at the warden's heart. The cost would be high, lives would be lost, but if they failed, Tartarus 9 would swallow them whole, and humanity's hope for a new home would vanish forever. In that cold, dark chamber beneath the ashes, a new kind of war was born. A war, not just for survival, but for the right to call this dead world home. And Commander Asha Kincaid was ready to lead that fight, no matter what it took. The nights on Tartarus 9 were filled with silence that felt alive, danger lurking in every shadow, every crack in the rocky ground. New Bastion's defenders knew the enemy did not sleep. The warden's drones prowled the darkness like ghosts, their sensors searching relentlessly for any sign of human movement. In this deadly game of cat and mouse, every step could be a trap. Commander Asha Kincaid had learned that the greatest weapon on this planet wasn't firepower alone, it was patience and cunning. Her soldiers moved carefully, their boots barely stirring the dust. Jace Moreno, the biometal soldier with nerves hardened by countless battles, led a small team into the deep tunnels carved by ancient alien hands beneath the surface. These tunnels were a maze of shadows and echoes, the air thick with alien humidity and the faint hum of dormant machines. The team's mission was clear: to gather intelligence about the warden's core control systems and find a way to strike it directly. As they crept forward, the walls themselves seemed to watch them. Strange symbols glowed faintly, ancient warnings from a civilization long erased. Every corner held the risk of ambush, and every sound could mean death. Suddenly, the eerie quiet shattered as automated defense turrets flared to life, firing sharp bolts of energy. The team scattered, diving for cover behind jagged rocks. Jace's reflexes were lightning fast. With a flick of his enhanced arm, he unleashed an EMP pulse that temporarily disabled the turrets, giving his team a moment to regroup. The fight was brutal but quick. They pressed on deeper into the tunnels. It was here they discovered the true scale of the enemy's power. Vast underground factories churned with relentless energy, producing endless waves of drones and machines. The walls were lined with cables and pipes pumping strange glowing liquids. Machines worked in eerie silence, crafting weapons designed to annihilate anything that moved on the surface. Among the shadows, a terrible realization dawned on them. The warden was building an army far larger than anyone had imagined. Back at New Bastion, the War Council pored over the reports. The enemy was not just defending, it was preparing to crush humanity in one final overwhelming strike. Communications with Earth remained blocked, and the colony's supplies were running low. Desperation threatened to sink the survivors into despair. But Asha would not allow it. Her voice was firm, cutting through the fear like a beacon. We cannot wait for reinforcements. We must become the hunters, not the hunted. She ordered a risky plan: to launch a surprise attack on one of the warden's key manufacturing hubs located near the planet's fiery volcanic fields. It was a gamble that could change everything or end in total destruction. The Black Talon was called again. Jace and his team prepared for a mission unlike any before. They would infiltrate the enemy's stronghold, plant explosives to destroy the factories, and escape before the planet itself exploded. The approach was deadly. Volcanic eruptions shook the ground beneath their feet, and rivers of molten rock forced them to navigate narrow, unstable ledges. Hostile creatures prowled the dark, attracted by the faint heat of human bodies. Every step forward was a test of will and skill. When they reached the heart of the enemy's factory, the scale of destruction was staggering. Endless rows of assembly lines churned out drones by the thousands. Jace's team planted the bombs, setting timers with hands that trembled from exhaustion and adrenaline. But just as they turned to leave, the entire facility roared to life. The warden had anticipated their attack. Automated turrets locked onto them. Drones swarmed like angry hornets. The battle was fierce and chaotic. Jace fought like a man possessed, his enhanced limbs moving with deadly precision. His teammates covered him, pushing through waves of enemy fire. The underground tunnels shook with explosions, and molten lava spilled dangerously close. As they raced back through the crumbling caverns, some of the team were lost, sacrificed to buy time for the others. When Jace finally emerged into the cold night air, his breath came in ragged gasps. The bombs detonated, sending a shockwave that lit up the dark skies. The factories were destroyed, but the cost was high. The loss of his comrades weighed heavily on him, yet there was no time to mourn. New Bastion needed every soldier to hold the line. The victory sent a powerful message to the Warden. Humanity was not broken. They had struck at the enemy's heart and lived to tell the tale. But the war was far from over. The Warden would retaliate with even greater fury, and the survivors would have to be ready. In the silence after the battle, Asha gathered her people and reminded them of what it meant to be human. "We do not bend to death," she said quietly. "We fight, we adapt, and we conquer. This planet may try to kill us, but it will never break us." As dawn broke over Tartarus 9, casting red light over the scorched earth, the survivors looked to the future. They were battered, but unbowed. They were the last hope of humanity on a world designed to kill, and they would turn this Deathworld into a home. The uneasy peace after the destruction of the enemy's factory was shattered quicker than anyone expected. The Warden did not just sit idle. It was a force driven by a cold logic that knew only one goal: to eliminate humanity from Tartarus 9. Within days, the planet's surface darkened with ominous clouds of ash and dust as massive war machines, freshly produced and upgraded, rolled out from hidden tunnels. These new war engines were faster, stronger, and more deadly than before, armed with weapons that could tear through the toughest human armor. New Bastion sentries spotted the advancing horde, a relentless tide of metal and fire that threatened to crush the colony like an insect underfoot. The alarm sirens wailed through the fortress, echoing off the stone walls and stirring every defender to action. Commander Asha Kincaid stood on the main command platform, watching the holographic battlefield unfold before her. She knew that this attack was unlike any they had faced so far. It was a calculated strike meant to break human will, to erase their presence from the planet entirely. Yet, despite the crushing odds, she refused to give in to fear. Her mind raced, calculating every possible move, every chance to turn the battle in their favor. As the enemy forces closed in, the defenders of New Bastion prepared for the worst. The battle would take place in the jagged canyons that surrounded the colony, narrow and twisting paths where the massive machines could be slowed and trapped. Asha ordered her engineers to set explosives in the choke points, turning the natural landscape into a deadly maze. The Black Talon squads moved swiftly, placing mines and booby traps while sharpshooters took positions in the rocky heights. Jace Moreno readied his gear, his body still healing from the last mission's wounds but his spirit burning with fierce determination. When the first wave of war machines thundered into the canyon, the traps detonated with brutal precision, sending explosions that lit the night sky and tore through enemy ranks. The heavy metal beasts stumbled, caught in the web of explosives and fire. Human fighters took advantage, striking swiftly with plasma rifles and laser blades. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of burning metal. Yet for every machine destroyed, 2 more advanced models rose to take its place. The Warden's control seemed endless, an unyielding force that fed on the planet's resources to build its army. As the battle raged, Asha's communications officer interrupted with urgent news. A massive fleet was entering orbit. The enemy was not only attacking on the ground, it was preparing to blockade New Bastion from space. The colony's fragile supply lines, already stretched thin, faced the threat of being cut off completely. Panic flickered in the eyes of the War Council, but Asha's voice remained steady. "We hold the line here. No one leaves. No one breaks." She then turned to her fleet commander, Captain Lynn Mara, a cool-headed veteran known for her sharp instincts in space warfare. Mara was already coordinating fighter squadrons and missile batteries to face the incoming threat. The clash above Tartarus 9 was as fierce as the one below. Human starships darted between asteroid fields, exchanging rapid fire with alien warships that boomed with destructive energy. Explosions erupted in the black void, lighting the darkness with bursts of deadly light. The 2 fronts fought desperately, above and below, linked by a fragile thread of hope and courage. Meanwhile, On the ground, Jace led a squad tasked with holding a key communication relay station vital to coordinating both space and planetary defenses. Under heavy fire, they fought off waves of enemy drones, their bodies pushed to the limit. Jace's biometal arm glowed faintly as he hacked into enemy signals, turning the attackers' weapons against them for a brief moment. But the cost was high. Many soldiers fell, leaving only a handful to hold the line. Despite the losses, the human defenders refused to retreat. Each man and woman knew that surrender meant death not just for themselves but for everyone counting on New Bastion to survive. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the blood-soaked ground, the battle reached its brutal climax. The Warden unleashed its deadliest weapon yet, a colossal war machine towering like a mountain, covered in armor plates that seemed impervious to human fire. Its massive cannons unleashed waves of energy that shattered buildings and sent shockwaves through the earth. The defenders' plasma shields flickered and failed under the onslaught. It was a moment of pure terror, and yet in that darkness, humanity's true strength shone. Asha personally led a daring assault team in an attempt to breach the war machine's defenses. With Jace and the Black Talon at her side, they fought through the wreckage using every trick they had learned in this brutal world. Explosives, plasma charges, and sheer grit pushed them closer to the enemy's weak points. After a fierce, desperate struggle, they found a vulnerable spot near the machine's core. With one final blast, the war machine exploded in a storm of fire and debris, shaking the ground and sending a roar that echoed across the battlefield. The enemy forces faltered, confusion and fear spreading through their ranks. Victory was not yet assured, but the tide had turned. New Bastion had survived, the deadliest assault yet. As the dust settled and the stars shone cold and distant above, the survivors tended their wounded and mourned their dead. The fight for Tartarus 9 was far from over, but humanity had made a stand. They had proven once again that no Deathworld could break the will of those who refused to give up. Asha's voice, calm but filled with fierce pride, reminded them all, "We came here to conquer. We came here to survive, and we will call this place home, no matter the cost." After the fierce battle that almost shattered New Bastion, hope seemed scarce. The human survivors were battered, their supplies running low, and the relentless attacks from the Warden left little time to breathe. But amid the darkness, a spark of light appeared, unexpected and miraculous. One morning, as the red sun rose over Tartarus 9's jagged horizon, long-range sensors picked up an unknown fleet approaching the planet's orbit. Unlike the cold mechanical warships of the Warden, these ships moved with grace, their hulls shimmering with strange organic shapes and colors. The communications team worked quickly to establish contact, and soon a voice spoke, calm, firm, and filled with an alien kindness that surprised everyone. The newcomers introduced themselves as the Valari, an ancient alien species known throughout the galaxy for their wisdom and power. They had been watching the conflict from afar, waiting for a sign of humanity's true strength before stepping in. The Valari's ships were unlike anything humans had seen, living vessels that seemed to pulse with life, equipped with technology that could heal wounds and repair damaged equipment almost instantly. Commander Asha Kincaid listened carefully as the Valari envoy explained that they had their own reasons for opposing the Warden, a mutual enemy threatening to spread destruction across many worlds. With their help, the fight for Tartarus 9 could take a new turn. Despite initial suspicion and fear, Asha and her war council agreed to a fragile alliance. The Valari offered advanced weaponry, defensive shields, and strategic knowledge about the Warden's weaknesses. In return, humanity would share its unbreakable will and unmatched fighting spirit. The Valari's arrival brought a surge of energy to the weary defenders. Human engineers worked side by side with alien technicians, learning to integrate Valari technology into New Bastion's defenses. The colony's starships were upgraded with organic hull plating that healed automatically, and plasma rifles were enhanced to punch through the Warden's toughest armor. But the Valari's greatest gift was their ability to see beyond the battlefield, to understand the enemy's tactics, and predict their moves before they happened. Asha found herself relying on their guidance as she planned the next phase of The War, a bold mission to strike deep into the Warden's main command center hidden beneath Tartarus Nine's volcanic mountains. Jace Moreno and his Black Talon squad trained relentlessly with the Valari warriors, learning new combat techniques and developing a bond that transcended words. They were no longer just humans fighting for survival. They were part of something greater, a united front against a darkness that threatened all life. As the alliance grew stronger, the Warden responded with fury. Its attacks became more desperate, striking faster and harder, attempting to crush the renewed resistance before it could fully form. But with Valari support, New Bastion held firm. The once broken colony was now a fortress, alive with hope and determination. The day of the assault on the Warden's command center arrived. The joint forces launched a coordinated attack, combining human firepower and Valari energy manipulation. The battlefield was a whirlwind of movement, colors flashing as ships streaked through the sky and soldiers fought side by side on the ground. The enemy's defenses were fierce, but the Allies pushed through with courage and skill. Jace led, a daring infiltration team that slipped past the outer guards and entered the heart of the enemy's lair. Inside, the corridors were cold and lifeless, filled with strange machinery and pulsing with a sinister energy. The team faced deadly traps and robotic sentries, but with quick thinking and teamwork, they moved closer to the command core. Meanwhile, above the surface, Asha coordinated the fleet's assault, juggling attacks and defenses in a complex dance of strategy. The Valari's ability to foresee enemy moves allowed the humans to avoid ambushes and strike at critical points. After a tense, exhausting battle, Jace and his squad reached the core chamber. There they confronted the Warden itself, a massive biomechanical entity controlling the planet's war machine network. The creature was terrifying, a twisted fusion of metal and flesh, with eyes glowing cold and cruel. The fight was brutal and desperate. Every member of the team pushed beyond their limits, their weapons blazing and their hearts pounding. Jace's enhancements gave him an edge, but even he was tested by the Warden's relentless power. With a final, coordinated strike combining Valari energy and human firepower, they destroyed the core. The Warden's control over the machines faltered, its massive form collapsing in a storm of sparks and smoke. As the enemy network died, the war machines on the surface ground to a halt. The once fierce assault slowed and then stopped entirely. Silence fell over Tartarus 9, not the silence of death, but the quiet of a world beginning to heal. The Alliance had won a great victory, but the cost was not forgotten. Many brave souls had fallen and the scars of battle would remain. Yet, in that moment, humanity and the Valari stood together, looking out over a planet no longer a death world, but a home reclaimed by courage and unity. The story of Tartarus 9 was far from over, but one thing was clear: no darkness could withstand the light of those who refused to give up. The victory over the Warden's command core brought a moment of relief, but it was clear the war was not over yet. The enemy was shattered but far from defeated. Deep beneath Tartarus 9's surface, in the dark caverns and volcanic tunnels, the remnants of the Warden's forces regrouped, preparing for one last desperate strike. Commander Asha Kincaid understood that if this final wave succeeded, all they had fought for would be lost. She gathered her closest officers and the Valari allies to plan the decisive battle. The plan was bold and dangerous. Human and Valari forces would launch a full-scale assault into the heart of the enemy's underground fortress. The tunnels were narrow and unstable, filled with poisonous gases and unpredictable earthquakes caused by the planet's restless core. Many had warned that such a mission would be a suicide run, but Asha knew that only by destroying the enemy's roots could they claim Tartarus 9 for good. Jace Moreno and the Black Talon squad volunteered for the lead strike team. They were the colony's best fighters, hardened by months of brutal war. Their armor was reinforced with Valari bioshields, their weapons charged with energy that could cut through any machine. The night before the mission, the soldiers gathered quietly, sharing stories and promises. The tension was thick, but so was the unspoken trust. They knew they might never return, but they would fight with every breath. As dawn broke, the assault began. Dropships tore through the smoky sky, landing on jagged ledges near the enemy's fortress entrances. The ground shook as massive war machines and drones swarmed to defend their last stronghold. The battle was immediate and violent. Explosions echoed through the tunnels, walls crumbled, and fire lit the darkness. Human and Valari fighters moved, with deadly precision, using their combined strengths to outmaneuver the enemy. Jace led his team through twisting corridors, navigating traps and ambushes with quick thinking and unbreakable will. The air was thick with dust and the metallic smell of blood and oil. Somewhere deep inside, the core of the Warden still pulsed, feeding energy to the remaining war machines. Reaching it meant facing not just soldiers, but the terrifying heart of the enemy itself. Along the way, they found pockets of survivors from earlier attacks, human prisoners captured and tortured to extract secrets. Rescuing them gave the fighters new resolve, a reminder that their mission was not just about victory but about saving lives. As they neared the core chamber, the tunnels grew hotter, the walls glowing with molten rock and strange alien machinery. The final defense was unlike anything they had seen. Biomechanical creatures that moved like shadows, almost invisible, striking with deadly speed. The battle turned brutal and personal, each step forward a test of endurance and courage. Jace's squad fought fiercely, every member relying on each other as exhaustion threatened to take hold. In the heart of the fortress, they confronted the last form of the Warden, a massive, shifting entity of living metal and corrupted flesh. It attacked with overwhelming power, its every blow capable of shattering bones and machines alike. The fighters used every weapon, every tactic, but the creature's regeneration was fast and it seemed endless. It was Asha's voice over the comms, calm but urgent, that reminded them of the final plan. The Valari scientists had developed a concentrated energy bomb designed to disrupt the Warden's core. Deploying it meant getting close enough to plant the device, and then escaping before the explosion. With grim determination, Jace and his team maneuvered through the creature's attacks to the core's center. The fight reached a fever pitch, every second a battle between life and death. Planting the bomb was a struggle, but they succeeded just as the creature lashed out in fury. With no time to lose, the team raced back through the collapsing tunnels, dodging falling debris and enemy forces that tried to stop them. Outside, Asha and the fleet waited anxiously, watching the planet's surface as the countdown began. When the bomb detonated, a blinding light consumed the underground fortress, shaking Tartarus 9 to its core. The blast tore through the enemy's network, severing their control and destroying their last defenses. The remaining war machines powered down, lifeless and silent. As dust settled and the shaking subsided, a new dawn rose over Tartarus 9. Not just a daybreak, but the birth of a new beginning. The survivors emerged weary but victorious. The price had been high, many brave souls lost in the final push, but humanity's spirit remained unbroken. Asha looked out across the scarred land, knowing this world, once a feared Class 0 Deathworld, was theirs now. They had conquered it not just with weapons but with heart, with unyielding courage and unity. Tartarus 9 was no longer a nightmare to survive, it was home. With the final defeat of the Warden, Tartarus 9 was no longer a battlefield but a world ready to be rebuilt. The scars of war were everywhere. The craters, the shattered machines, and the twisted remains of battle still littered the landscape. But the people who survived the nightmare had something stronger than any weapon: hope. Commander Asha Kincaid stood on a high ridge overlooking New Bastion, the battered colony that had become a symbol of humanity's unbreakable will. Around her, humans and Valari worked side by side, their combined efforts shaping the planet's future. Engineers repaired damaged buildings while biologists studied the strange, harsh environment to find ways to make it livable. The Valari's advanced technology helped stabilize the atmosphere, filtering toxins and balancing the volatile weather. Slowly, green patches began to spread across the blackened soil, small signs that life could take root here. Children born during the war, who had never known peace, now played under skies that were clearer than they had ever seen. Jace Moreno, once a battle-hardened soldier, now led teams clearing hazardous zones and rebuilding vital infrastructure. His scars, both physical and emotional, reminded him daily of the cost of victory. Yet he found strength in the community that had grown from ashes. The survivors shared stories of sacrifice, bravery, and loss, creating a new culture forged in the fire of hardship. The Valari, too, became teachers and friends, showing humans ways to harness the planet's strange energy sources and improve their technology. Asha often walked among the settlers, listening to their hopes and fears, knowing that this fragile peace needed constant care. But not all dangers had passed. Some pockets of the Warden's remaining drones stirred in deep caves, and unknown predators roamed the wilds beyond the colony. Patrols remained vigilant, and scientists worked tirelessly to understand the planet's mysteries. Still, the greatest battle had been won, not just against the enemy, but against despair. The story of Tartarus 9 was spreading across the stars, inspiring other colonies and distant worlds. Humanity had taken a planet no one wanted, a death world meant to break the toughest spirits, and made it their home. The alliance between humans and Valari deepened. Shared celebrations marked the passing seasons, blending cultures and traditions. Asha and Jace, once warriors bound by war, now dreamed of a future where children could grow without fear, where Tartarus 9 would become a beacon of resilience and unity. One evening, as the twin moons rose in the sky, Asha stood on the ridge again, feeling the cool wind and the steady heartbeat of the planet beneath her feet. The colony below glowed softly, with lights and laughter. The red skies that once symbolized death now held the promise of life. Tartarus 9 was no longer just a Class 0 death world. It was a testament to what humanity could overcome. They had conquered the harshest challenges nature and enemies could throw at them. They had built not just a settlement, but a home, a new beginning for all who dared to dream beyond the stars. Years had passed since the final battle on Tartarus 9, and what was once a terrifying death world had transformed into a thriving home for humanity and their Valari allies. The planet still bore the marks of its violent past. Craters, scorched, earth and ruined ruins, but the scars told a story of survival, strength, and hope. Settlements spread across the planet's surface, blending advanced technology with the raw beauty of the wild land. Towering domes protected delicate crops and water reserves, while outside the wilds teemed with strange alien life forms, slowly adapting alongside the colonists. Children ran freely under skies once darkened by war, their laughter ringing across valleys and plateaus that had once echoed with the roar of battle. Commander Asha Kincaid had become a leader not just in war but in peace. Her face showed the wear of years, but her eyes burned with the same fierce spirit that had carried her through every impossible fight. She often spoke at gatherings, reminding everyone that Tartarus 9 was more than a planet. It was proof that no challenge was too great for humanity. Jace Moreno, now a veteran elder, shared tales of the battles that had shaped their world, teaching younger generations about courage, sacrifice, and unity. The Valari remained close allies, their technology and wisdom helping to protect the colony from remaining dangers. Together, they built a council where humans and Valari decided the planet's future as equals, forging bonds deeper than any war could break. But the legacy of Tartarus 9 extended beyond the planet itself. News of their victory and resilience spread across the galaxy, inspiring other colonies and worlds to stand strong against threats and hardships. The tale of how humans conquered a Class 0 death world became a symbol, a reminder that even the deadliest places could be tamed with determination and heart. As trade routes opened and explorers ventured beyond the system, Tartarus 9 grew into a hub of innovation and culture, blending the harsh lessons of survival with the bright promise of progress. New settlers arrived, drawn by the stories of hope and strength. They came not just to survive but to thrive, to be part of a community that had fought for every inch of its existence. Yet, the challenges never fully disappeared. The planet's wilds remained dangerous, with strange creatures and unstable regions that tested the bravery and skill of those who dared to explore them. Scientists and engineers worked constantly to improve safety and understanding, turning every discovery into an opportunity for growth. Throughout it all, the memory of those who had fallen was honored with quiet monuments and stories passed down like precious treasures. Their sacrifice became the foundation of a new future, a future where humans had proven they could face the universe's fiercest trials and emerge not just alive, but victorious. One clear night, as Asha stood beneath the stars, she thought of how far they had come. From desperate soldiers fighting for survival in dark tunnels to leaders building a new world, their journey had been epic and hard-won. The red skies no longer warned of death but glowed with the light of hope and possibility. Tartarus 9 was home now, a place where humanity's spirit had triumphed over death itself. The story of this death world would live on, not as a place of fear but as a symbol of courage, unity, and the unbreakable will to conquer the impossible.